system.
Woo! Yes, it is Saturday afternoon's main event. Once again, another great way to start your Saturday, as we always start with the top three tenets that make Saturdays the way they are. Laughs, good times, and all the wrestling news possible. You're looking at the kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying. Woo! Son of a gun. That's not having a hard time holding these alligators down. I'm giving you two claps because I am the Peach Snake. I am here starting the show. We know that you guys out there are waiting for a great Saturday of nothing but great wrestling news. We got so many things to talk about, but I do not come alone because I am here with one of the other three tenets that started this show way back in its original incarnation. I give to you the one and the only Mr. 411, Christopher Morton.
What is up, Nate? It is good to be here as always. Love this place. It's been in my heart for all these years. Saturday afternoon's main event. We're going to talk about that later on, of course, in terms of the genesis of same. And yeah, it's great to be here. Great weekend of wrestling, Clash at the Castle, and for the few people that watch Collision.
And of course, we also had a TNA pay-per-view just last night, which is kind of weird trying to figure out a wrestling pay-per-view on a Friday. But you know, Ring of Honor does it, so I guess TNA has been doing it as of late as well. Also, I didn't come along by myself with my good friend Christopher Morton as well. The other tenet of the original Saturday afternoon's main event, the one, the only, the Triple C. Where are you, my friend?
What is up, fellas?
Yes.
What are you guys doing?
We are
I gotta
good.
put myself over. Are you kidding me?
Of course. The people's choice. Go right on ahead.
I'm the Triple C, and you know I'm having a good time. It's great.
Wait, what?
To be here.
Who's that?
What?
There's a phenomenal one. Well, normally
Wow.
he's on the show, but
He doesn't even get an introduction.
Wow. What?
what's the deal with him?
What's going on?
You know, I don't know what. I don't know. Normally,
Did you just watch Dynamite? You look physically ill.
I don't know. He
Yeah. I haven't heard from you since yesterday. You know, what's going on?
Oh, he's broke now.
Wow.
All right, we'll get back to him.
Yeah.
You're kidding, right? Jenna Parker lost the North American champions. You got to be kidding me.
Wow.
Phenomenal
You're
one.
that broken up over Wow.
Jada Parker, phenomenal one. Get a grip. Who cares? Dom Mysterio is still the greatest North American heavyweight champion of all time. Who cares? I'm sick and sick. You're killing me with this.
Wow. He's really broken up over that.
Oh, he's gone. Just like that.
He's gone.
He really is gone.
He's really broken up because of Jada Parker? Are you serious?
Let me check. Yeah, he's gone. Okay, well, I guess we'll take over the show for the moment right now until maybe he gets himself together, I don't know. He'll get back to me or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, we're gonna start the show off with wrestling crash course as we usually do at the start of every show. And of course, the first topic that we're going to talk about for those that are really wanting to get into it. How about this? Jeff Hardy is back in TNA after a long absence away from AEW and all of his legal issues. Showed up back in TNA with his brother toward the end of the pay-per-view. What do you guys think as far as Jeff Hardy being back along with his brother? It's been at least, a year since we've seen Jeff Hardy in anything meaningful. I'll throw this one out to Chris. What do you think of this one?
Well, is he going to stay clean? Is he going to – I mean, there's so many variables that come with Jeff Hardy, who used to be an amazing draw, amazing talent, one of the great in-ring performers. And it just becomes sad over the years what we've seen him become. And I mean, it's obviously they had a great success in TNA with the delete brother Nero.
Yes.
I mean, I just don't know. It's almost like it's like in the Wrestler going back, going to the indie show at the end of the movie. You just, what does he have left? How can TNA really rely on him to put him in anything significant? So what do you do with that?
I mean, he's in a hopefully he's in a good place. First of all, the pop that I heard last night when his music hits, and obviously it was a great thing for Jeff Hardy, making his another return. And as you guys alluded to, obviously whatever his legal issues and things that that's going on in his life. Hopefully, him going to TNA and being with his brother there in TNA, maybe that's a good thing. Again, we know we've kind of seen this script before, but at least for the moment and in the moment last night, it was a great return.
Yes, and I think that this is something that Jeff Hardy needs. I think if you're going to have a storyline with Matt Hardy being broken again and bringing everybody in with Vanguard 1 and back at the Hardy compound where they had Moose show up and it's craziness that the things that they have conceptually done in that broken world, the fact that they're doing it back in TNA again, it was kind of missing something, and to have Jeff Hardy back involved in it, it's good. But as you both have alluded to, is he in a good place? How are they going to use him? Is he going to be healthy enough? And even more so, how dependable is he going to be? And I think that once you figure out if he's going to be dependable or not, then you can kind of work him into the storylines and kind of figure where they're going to go from there. And I think that that's probably what he needs going forward right now.
Agreed.
Yes. Also, going in NXT, how about this? They've beaten Dynamite in the ratings. I kid you not. This is something that was an issue going forward with NXT after they moved from their initial Wednesday night years ago to compete against AEW. AEW was literally beating them left and right. They moved off to Tuesdays, and then NXT has gotten strong itself. As a matter of fact, NXT this past week did 718,000. Although they dropped a little bit, 768,000 the previous week. But Dynamite did only 681,000. That's troubling.
Now, to be fair, two things. One is a Tuesday night. The other one was a Wednesday night.
That's true.
Game 3 of the NBA Finals was Wednesday, I believe, right?
Yes.
Right? So to be fair, AEW was going up against the NBA Finals at the same time. Tuesday, NXT went up against, I'm assuming, the Stanley Cup Finals.
Right? Yes.
Which is obviously more eyes are on the NBA Finals. Not defending, the ratings, because at the end of the day, NXT beat Dynamite as far as, the overall viewership. But there, to me, it is two different nights. And again, you still have, finals in the NHL and the NBA, that they're both are dealing with.
That is correct. And if you look at it from this sense, what do you think do you pull out from this outside of the way that everybody looks at sports right now compared to what is happening in wrestling. We're not going to get those same numbers that we once did 15, 20 years ago, where we were getting 3, 4, 5 million people watching wrestling. Those days are over with. More eyeballs, more things to watch. Chris, what do you think that is that indicative of what NXT is doing with their star power compared to, even though it's a different show, NXT versus AEW Dynamite, but what do you think this is indicative of for either? Is this an indication that one show is actually better than the other, or is there some sort of actual outside input that's kind of weighing down on both shows?
Well, my biggest takeaway is MJF came back, got that little bump in the ratings. They almost did, what, 800,000 in the week back. And then, granted, they're up against competition in the NBA Finals, but to lose 100,000 people, right? Is that the number? They lost over 100,000 people.
Yes, because they did 790,000 the previous week, right, and they dropped to 681. That's huge.
110. That's alarming to me from the standpoint of, wow, he couldn't hold any of those viewers in week 2. And of course, he did appear on Dynamite. It wasn't like he wasn't there at all. So if you're a fan of MJF's, because it always goes back to the Punk thing in terms of how many ratings, how many viewers, eyeballs he brought in. And then he went away. We saw those numbers dwindle over the last several months without him. And then when MJF comes back, you're like, okay, he's going to hold these people. We're going to get the 800. Next week, we'll say a lot, because I'm inclined to believe the Celtics will end this series in Game 5, despite last night's the debacle in Dallas.
Mercifully. Yes, right. They will mercifully end this series soon.
I mean, at the end of the series, Dynamite is unopposed next Wednesday. So that is a huge telling in terms of the MJF viewership and how they come back to see him. Because if they're losing those people, well, they're doomed. They're doomed because no one else is a draw. There's no one else on that show right now that is a draw. I mean, you want to talk about Ospreay? Yeah, he has good quarter numbers. I'm not going to say he doesn't. But is he bringing in everyone? No, no, he's not.
Yes. I think that's what hurts AEW. Outside of that, they have way too many injuries. They have, to their credit, a lot of really good talent on their roster. The problem is a lot of the top half of the roster is hurt or suspended, if you're going to throw in Sammy Guevara.
Why they hurt? Because of all the crap they do in the ring. That's why they're hurt.
Yeah. It's self-inflicted for the most part. So I think that what do you think has to happen? Because remember, they got a pay-per-view coming up on the 30th. They have to sell Forbidden Door. What do you guys think that they have to do? I'll throw it to you, Chris. What do you think they need to do between now and then to kind of bump up those numbers outside of the finals and outside of all of the sports that's going on right now? What do you think that they need to do to get that interest back so that they get a modest bump that actually stays consistent over what they've been getting?
Well, that's the hardest part right now, is because you're geared towards a specific pay-per-view, Forbidden Door, which is going to include New Japan talent, CMLL talent. So therefore, there's angles in which they can't deviate from to build a bigger audience. And the hardest part for them is that, and as much as people want to love New Japan, it doesn't draw. Okay, we know the numbers on Access are really bad. Not many people know CMLL. So in this moment, up until June 30th, when that pay-per-view takes place, you're not going to bring any new eyeballs in. People aren't going to be like so excited to see all these other wrestlers they've never seen before. Not the casual fan. The AEW audience, of course, they're all into this, and that's why that rating or the pay-per-view buy will be high, but the ratings will stay as is. I don't think there's going to be a major boost. Although, again, next Wednesday we'll see if those people come back without the NBA Finals.
Yeah. And Triple C, what do you think as far as what AEW should either try to do or what you think they can do to help their ratings up?
To Mr. 41's point, think about it. I mean, they cater to really a small portion of an audience, of a wrestling audience. You know, like as he alluded to. You know, New Japan, CMLL. You're not catering to the mass, and you know, to the point. Forbidden Door is, you know, not saying nothing wrong against, you know, the other promotions, but listen, this is not a those are not major promotions that people are watching. So not to say that who cares, but let's be honest. One thing when I look at AEW is the storytelling. Again, outside of the MJF, I'm looking at a story. You know, like give me a good story. You know, something that I can sink my teeth in. And to me, it's like as you guys talked about earlier, before, to start the show, in particular, for one, talking about as far as like, you're doing all these crazy moves and things like that. Okay, well, what's the point of, doing this? Why are you flipping? You say like, 450 splashes and all these other things. Why? Give me a reason. What's the storytelling? And that to me is, I feel, a lost art in AEW. And I think that is a problem. You have to look at, wrestling fans, and you look at, from what, for us, we were watching in the 80s, obviously, till now, and people that watched wrestling from before that. Listen, wrestling has evolved, and AEW to me, yeah, you got the high spots and all those things, but look at their attendance. And as you guys say, they lost 110,000. Granted, some of it might be because of sports, but again, it's alarming to me when you're not having a strong story, and the matches, it's great, but at the end of the day, why is for example, like, and I'm sure what's the point, will say something about AEW later on, but why is Sir Strickland with Ospreay, why they're having a segment at the end? I mean, well, not at the end, but why they're having a segment, and why they're saying a few things. I'm like, well, what's the reason? Give me the reason why they're about to have a match. Why? And again, to me, AEW is failing in those aspects, which to me is very important.
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And I think that to kind of belie the ratings issue, this is something that somebody brought up about the Dynamite show showing during the NBA Finals. This is the fourth year that they've been doing this, where they go up against the NBA Finals. The first time that they did it in 2021, they did 1.25 million. The next year, 939,000. 2023, 903,000. And then, of course, what we just talked about, 681,000. This is a company.
1,000. Wow, 220 last year.
Yes, a drop from that much the previous year. And the crazy part about this, and Rich and I brought out, my partner, we brought this up a couple weeks ago, that AEW has not done a 1 million rating as far as that in over a year. We're going back to February of last year that they drew 1 million or over 1 million viewers. So if that's the case, they have to learn how to grow their audience. And apparently the two things that they need to do with growing that audience, as the both of you alluded to, getting a story that actually fits, fastening it to the right wrestler, and then building around that. They did at one point have good storytelling, good in-ring work to some degree. That has completely fallen off the map. And I think that that's something that they have not really recovered from. And that's going to be a while before they get back to that point.
But so they may never. Listen, the in-ring is there, but the storytelling, yes. And in terms of like the top stars coming back, who knows what they're going to be put into. I mean, we've all talked about Tony Khan needing a break from booking, and he'll never do that. So what does that say? I mean, we don't know how much input he actually is getting from the people behind the scenes. It's not looking up. It's how can you be excited about this product?
Yeah, it's there are parts of the shows that are good. That's the one thing that we can say. The problem is it's so few and far between when they're building against what their competition is. They were the ones that pushed the whole competition with WWE. So they're not competing against themselves. They're competing against a bigger, better brand name that is doing it much better than them, even when they do not as good. They're not as good. It's still twice as good as their best. That's something that they have to work on.
Hey, Taekwon, we didn't kill Phenomenal One. I mean, he seems like he's depressed.
There he is.
Oh yes, Phenomenal One is here.
There he is.
My partner is back.
Welcome back, Phenomenal One.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Triple C.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah. Yes. I see Taekwon went ahead and summoned me. If one of our historic and great listeners, speak for me, I might as well just show back up.
Yeah.
I
like it's just Jay Parker losing the title. I mean, what's the big deal? I mean,
don't start.
Oh boy.
Don't start. Please don't. Please.
Well, listen. Because it's Jada Parker. You know what I'm saying? Phenomenal one. I'll just have a little toast. On the fact that Dom Mysterio is still the greatest North American heavyweight champion of all time.
Give it up for day drinking. Give it up for day drinking.
Oh, good grief.
Day drink. Is that absolute? Absolute?
Oh. Good grief.
Oh, man.
So
you're saying that Dominic Mysterio would beat Mr. Wrestling 2 in Mid-South Wrestling 1983 from North America?
Are you kidding me? Dom Mysterio, you could put a mask on him. If you think about like his dad, who's Rey Mysterio? Are you kidding me? Dom could be in the Hall of Fame right now. That's the way I look at it. Dom is a Hall of Fame wrestler. Let's come on, guys. Let's be real. What a champion. But anyway.
Triple C, you done?
Oh, phenomenal one. I'm done. At least when I talk about Jada Parker now.
God. I digress.
We got the first one of the day.
We're going to get through a whole show without one.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what?
There we go.
No worries. I'll take the load off your back. I'll just carry through a wrestling crash course to these Neanderthals or jabronis. Anywho, ladies and gentlemen, the next piece of wrestling crash course is going to be given to one Christopher Morton. He has a rant brewing in the works for about a good how many years? And yes, it involves the Cucamonga boys. It involves a snorted up owner. It involves a lot. So, Christopher Morton, the floor is yours.
I tried. Listen, knowing I was coming on the show this week, I had to endure the task of trying to watch Dynamite. And the show starts, and Swerve comes out. And everyone, we love Swerve, okay? We big supporters of Swerve, Nana. Listen, Nana's dance, let's do it. Come on. Come on. It's the best dance.
Yes.
And the people were behind Swerve. They were. I said past tense. Were. Are they now? Kinda. It's dwindling. You hear it. Because of how he's been booked. He's been horribly booked since winning the title. He was an afterthought. The night he won the title, he afterwards, think about it, the Dynamite after, he wrestled in the second segment instead of opening the show with the mic in his hand. It's terrible. So then he's in the mic, he's in the ring rather, and then out come the Bucks. And the Bucks are, you can make a case right now, the way the Bucks are on television, that anyone ever that had a hand in contributing to the death of WCW, the Bucks are worse. They're worse. They come out and their acting is atrocious. They try to act like tough guys. They do the whole, no one thinks we're that violent. No one will ever think you're violent. No one will ever think you're dangerous. No one will ever think you're scary. And Jack Perry looks like a joke. A joke. And I love that during the match that he was in against, by the way, what year is this? 2024? I could not believe. And listen, we know Dustin Rhodes just has an amazing career, okay? Amazing career. He's in your opening match. Think about what you have backstage, okay? Now, we don't know who's healthy, of course. That goes back to the rant. Who's healthy? Because let's be honest, we want to give everybody Canadian Destroyer 5 times a match on the ring apron, which is supposed to be, air quotes, the hardest part of the ring. Yet, has anyone ever been pinned once with a move off the ring apron? The answer in AEW is no. No. They don't. Stop telling me it's the hardest part of the ring, because it doesn't hurt anyone. It doesn't take anyone to the hospital. Orange Cassidy can take 6 a match, and he's still kicking out 25 minutes in, because, of course, Tony Khan, every match has to be 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I don't need it. I almost sound like Mad Dog, right? What are you doing?
I was about to say that.
It's ridiculous.
Mikey, I don't understand. What are they doing? It's like, bring it back, okay? I once did a show on Morton's Law Podcast, which is now dormant, but I'm going to bring it back over the summer. I am. And I talked about, it was a joke on, of course, Mr. Orange, our former president, make moves matter again. And WWE's tried. They're trying. AEW, nothing matters. You can kill someone in the ring and they're going to kick out. Okay, they're going to somehow come back to life and kick out. and it's ridiculous. They need to do something with the pile driver because it's not working. It's not working. People should be injured, and they're not. So how can you believe that a 145-pound man that is Orange Cassidy is getting up from these moves and think it's serious, think it's legit? It's not. It looks bad. And then the Bucks, going back to them. I don't know who thought that. I mean, I want to see the quarter hour, by the way, because normally the Big Bang Theory, which is their lead-in, gives them a good number, although that number's been dwindling over time. So I'm curious how low it was coming in, and then how much that first, or well, that technically they were only part of the first segment, because then of course Dustin Rhodes, it was in the. I wonder how much of a drop that was. So if the Big Bang, if you, Nate, if you can look that up, the quarter hour available to us, that if they started, let's say they started with 800,000 hypothetically, right, and then I'm curious what they dropped for that Dustin Rhodes match, because I mean, and why is he blading? Why? He's blading. He's a bloody mess by the third segment. That match went over 15 minutes, did it not? Right? That match,
something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, it was longer than it needed to be.
Right. Yes, it is.
And you can say Dustin actually kind of got protected, right? And giving him the middle finger, and then like I don't know, it was not necessary. This is Jack Perry here.
It was so bad. I don't know how anyone can be like, yeah, I want to watch this. I want to see this. You turn it on. Could you imagine if you came out of a coma and you were in a coma since like 2005? You're like, what? Dustin
man,
ring right now? He's not Goldust anymore. What does he look like?
Not even that. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna see Petey Williams' Canadian Destroyer get put on blast for the next 6 moves of the match, and you're gonna sit there and be like, how the hell did he not die?
Right.
But I digress. I digress.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There is number 2.
They don't care about anything. They just and there's another thing that's like it's just move to move to move to move. Very few of their matches has any kind of stoppage where there's a hold, there's somebody selling it. They just get up. And how do you care about it? And I love them, by the way, during that match with Jack Perry, and there was a fan ringside, and Jack Perry was trying to get at him, and the fans just did this. You got choked out. You wouldn't see that. I mean,
I will say, of all the people that use pile drivers, it seems like the only person whose pile driver is protected is Toni Storm's, because she has not lost a match this year.
No,
think about that.
Wait. To be fair, though, did she not in her match use a pile driver off the top rope and then did a second one after the one off the top rope to pin her opponent? How ridiculous is that? How does a pile driver from the top rope not pin anyone?
I have no idea, but hey, I'm not booking the show.
This is where it's going, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse every week. If you watch Dynamite, God bless you. I mean, really, God bless you, because it's so bad. It's so bad. And I couldn't even – I'm still on, like, the beginning of hour 2 watching Mercedes Monet's match. I mean, it's decent. I'm sure someone will say it's 8.5 stars. I mean, it's
8.5 stars because of the derriere. Right. and I'm not talking about Mercedes either, but that's another story.
Oh boy!
I can only imagine what Dave Meltzer's mother's basement looks like by now.
Oh,
bad. I mean, because we want
posters of stars all over the room.
By the way, I want to set it clear, and I think we say this
along with 30 socks, but I digress.
I want to make this clear because we do say it every week. But for those who are just tuning in, let's say people tune on YouTube. Oh, they hate AEW. They want it to die. They want it to not succeed. No, furthest from the truth. We were on board with this. We wanted this to be a successful alternative. We still do. We hope one day that the right person can take over the book and make this make sense again and make it.
Isn't Scott D'Amore still out there somewhere? I mean, they should be knocking on his door to bring him in.
Oh, let's calm down with his so-called genius. I mean, come on now. Let's. If anything, I would want to bring in Hunter Johnson. Delirious, the Booker of Ring of Honor for so many years.
Of course,
credibility in terms of booking goes.
You know what? Why not Tony Khan just pass Taz the book?
What?
Oh no!
I think you just started something.
Let me explain something to the audience that is listening. Anytime that some bitch is mentioned, Taz, the biggest piece of Red Hook Trailer Park trash walking. And yes, there is a trailer park in Red Hook in the section of Brooklyn, New York. He's garbage. He is garbage.
Tell us how you really feel, Triple C.
Yeah, tell us how you really feel.
Yes.
Hey, at least Taz sold the pile driver back in the day, right? I mean,
F him.
Yeah.
That stupid FTW title, F him. You suck.
And I think the only reason why he sold the pile driver is because it broke his neck. So, I mean, that's kind of that the best way to sell is when you really get hurt. I digress. Good.
all right, now
Fourth, fifth one of the day.
Yeah.
Jeez, oh man. Well, look, from that, we move to the world of WWE. And the question here today, after this whole week, is Ricochet really gone? Of course, if we watched Monday Night Raw this past Monday, we would know that Braun Breaker sent that man to the gulag, the Shadow Realm, up in the stars with Christ himself. What are our thoughts? Is there a chance that this is just the storyline that WWE is brewing to bring Ricochet back? Is this the end-all be-all? Does this mean that he goes straight to AEW? Maybe goes ahead and signs with TNA? Maybe another wrestling promotion maybe goes back to Japan. Who knows? If we see Prince Puma back in action. Okay, Chris seems like he's out of it. Mr. 411, are you sure? What's wrong with Prince Puma?
No. It's not even that. I know you named a couple companies. Listen, there's no doubt in my mind that Tony Khan wants to see Ricochet against Will Ospreay one more time. Okay,
Of course.
This match happened in Japan X amount of years ago. All right, and for the most part, those fans that liked that match went crazy and loved it. But a lot of people who went, that was not a wrestling match. It was a gym meet. You know, it was a gymnastics meet. So, but again, we're gonna get that match. I'd be shocked if we didn't get that match.
So I guess we're all like, kind of in the mindset that Ricochet goes to AEW, right?
I think that want to go. Why does he want to go?
I don't. If the thought process for Ricochet is that he wants to have other dream matches, he wants to get another kind of push, he wants to get featured even higher in the card. Okay, but what Triple H has been doing with Ricochet on the card is a lot better than what he was getting when Vince was running everything. So I think that, and his fiance being the ring announcer in the company was an extra perk. I don't know. I just don't understand why he would want to leave, but if that's what he feels he should do.
Triple C, what are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, a couple of things about Ricochet. What it does is that it gives him obviously a storyline out for him to go elsewhere, but it also leaves a chance that in case if he does come back and, if he's living on good terms and it looks like that's what's going on, it gives him a storyline for if he does ever to return, he would have obviously a feud ready to go with Braun Breaker. But, if he wants to go somewhere else and think about it. I mean, wrestlers, say whatever you want. They are athletes just like, all, sports athletes. They have a shelf life. And if he can go make more money in AEW, and I'm sure Tony Khan would pay him, he's a former WWE, he'll be a former WWE wrestler, going to AEW, which to me, that'd probably be their best signing because he's still young. He's, he can go, so I think that if he goes to AEW, which will probably be a good thing for him because I think he'd be featured even more prominently over there than WWE, because
and also
WWE
this would be
roster.
I think this would also be the younger replacement for Adam Copeland, considering they brought him in for that same kind of mindset. Former WWE star, bring him in on the roster, but he got hurt doing that stupid elbow off the top of the cage, which broke his leg. So now that they have another void somewhere in that roster, they bring Ricochet in, and of course, they have 800 million championships there. We know that Ricochet can be brought in to kind of enhance whichever championship they decide to put him in. And as we've all been alluding to, we know that Ricochet is going to have another feud somewhere with Will Ospreay. As a matter of fact, Ospreay's been kind of booking this on his own social media for the last month. So let's see what happens from there.
It wasn't even a feud. It was a match. It was a one-off.
Yeah.
Didn't Swerve say something about Ricochet a week ago? Possibly about him, joining AEW. Did Swerve Strickland say something about him? No, I
feel like Swerve alluded to it. Ospreay alluded to it when they asked Tony Khan the question, and they didn't even ask him about him joining AEW. They just asked him, "What does he think of Ricochet as a wrestler?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't like speaking on other talent that's still in contract with other promotions." So I mean,
okay,
that's pretty much all we've gotten from the AEW stance when it comes to Ricochet.
Wait, that's what Ospreay said about Ricochet?
No, that's what Tony Khan said about.
Oh,
Ricochet.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
401. Quick question. Now, during your rant, one thing I was actually surprised you didn't bring up was their titles and how many titles and what do these titles mean. I was watching Ospreay. Which by the way, he had a tremendous match. With Phoenix, and great match. I love it. But what does the international title mean? What does the TBS title mean? What does the trios title mean? What do these titles mean? And sometimes I think back, and again, it's not bashing AEW, because I think back of, when there was the World Wrestling Federation, in the late 90s, during the Attitude Era, you had the hardcore title, the European title, so you had a lot of titles where I'm like, come on.
Don't forget the light heavyweight title.
The light heavyweight title. So those belts to me were meaningless. But what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that, I know what I think, but do you guys think a lot of these titles are meaningless, or do you think that they actually do serve a purpose?
They don't serve a purpose, but also to your point, even Nature's prestigious NWA. Listen, Starrcade, the original Starrcade. What were there? 7 titles up for grabs in that card.
Yeah.
It's just so many titles throughout wrestling. I mean, it's all about, when you think about it, what does it mean, and who has it that matters? And the question is nobody. They just give it to back then, at least, the people had title and they were doing something with them. Today, you can have anyone with a title, and what are they doing with it? Like we just talked about Swerve. He's the world heavyweight champion. He feels like don't you feel like it's a mid-card title with him having it right now?
It's a mid-carder that happens to be the world champion. And that's the way they're treating him. And I think the problem is I talked about this before, is that they don't present any of these championships as important as the way that they should. And that's mostly due to the way that they book their shows. You've got Rampage sitting on a Friday. If they wanted to, they could take 1 or 2 of those championships, have them defended, 1 or 2 of them defended on Rampage. You have something happening on Dynamite, Contenders, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going after this belt. Watch on Friday or watch on Saturday. Saturday, you have somebody from Collision. They're saying, well, they're going to go after a championship. I'm going to be here, Contenders match or whatever, and then make that Friday show have some importance, have some rankings, top 3 of this guy is the first number 1 contender, number 2, number 3 contender. You have some important matches on either Dynamite, on Collision. You have them wrestle on Rampage. You solve a big problem there. But there isn't any of that stuff, because the only thing that you see is on the Chiron when they come out, this person is 11-0, this person is 7-6, or whatever their year, and those rankings mean nothing. So the championships don't mean anything because they don't participate with the rankings of any importance on the show.
Definitely so. Definitely so. From there, we move to the world of WWE still, and I guess Hollywood. The Rock is injured. Yeah. Earlier this past week, we know that he was on set for his movie The Smashing Machine, and within that, he ended up and smashed his elbow. Now, pretty much in the stance, he might be out for maybe, several months. From what we know, he had fluid drained out of the elbow that was swollen for the past week, and he's saying that he's going to be out for a little while. Of course, Triple C, we had this talk when you were last on the show a couple of weeks back, in which that we thought there would be a chance that The Rock would probably come back by SummerSlam and then start his whole storyline leading up to WrestleMania 41 in Vegas next year. With this happening, does this put it on a halt? And to you other gentlemen that is listening to this as well, do you guys think that there is going to be a halt within this storyline for The Rock as well? But we'll start with Triple C.
Well, first of all, I did watch The Rock talk about, the injured elbow, injuring on the set and all of that. But, cheers to The Rock. I know he was drinking Terramana. I'll just drink a little, no.
You just say that because he's a Miami alma mater. That's why.
Yeah, of course.
I
There's another question. You shut up, Mr. 401, because I don't want to hear nothing about Alabama football. I can tell us what you got to say about Alabama football. But anyway, back.
And you're wearing crimson red on top of that. Jeez.
You just have to say that. You suck, Phenomenal One.
What do you mean? We're both UM fans. How you hating on me?
Well,
It's just ironic that you're wearing crimson red. I'm sorry.
You just have to bring that up, but that's
I'm
another
sorry.
story. But anyway, as far as The Rock goes, well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, so if the story gets halted, and I keep noticing 411 with the Ultimate Warrior shirt, and he keeps bringing this up. I mean, why? I don't know. I mean, the man, I have respect for him, but he has been gone for a while now. But I do have respect for the Ultimate Warrior. But as far as to your point, Phenomenal One, The Rock, being injured. So if the plans were for him to come, maybe take on Cody Rhodes, to have that big gate, I guess, at SummerSlam. Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly that's not going to happen. He will not be, having any kind of physical, altercations with anybody, but at least for the next several months. So if that's the case, well, if there's a Roman Reigns that's sitting at home, maybe you could have a rematch, at SummerSlam. Maybe you want to go an alternate route with that, against Cody Rhodes. So, I mean, there's a lot of layers that you can go with that. So not having The Rock there to, actually have a match, I don't think it's really that much important, because most of the time he would be on, it would be for him to have, verbal segments, with whoever.
True. Understandable. Peeps, what are your thoughts?
I don't have a feeling that is going to hurt him at all, in the sense that they don't use him that often, unless he's right the penultimate time that you're going to use him for a storyline or for something that's going to further a feud. So he's got an injury to the elbow. If it doesn't take him away too long, they can still use him. He can do a vignette. Oh, I'm at the crib. Oh, I'm at the mansion. Oh, I'm in Hollywood. They can continue to do that and use that to kind of leverage where they are with him by keeping him on camera only when they need to maybe further whatever storyline that they're going to do. As far as where the payoff is when he's initially healthy, they have between now and, say, Royal Rumble. And then they can start saying, well, we're going to get something going on that road toward WrestleMania and see where they go from there. But I don't think that there's going to be too much of a problem. The fact that he's hurt now probably helps in his healing, that it didn't happen, say, September, October, because then that could have complicated things going towards WrestleMania if the plan is to use him then.
You know what? I just want to know one thing. How late was he to the set, that prima donna piece of shit? How many hours was he late to the set in which he got hurt, okay? Because then it's called karma. Karma.
Well, we didn't hear nothing about...
Looks like somebody hated the Black Adam movie.
But I think
they pulled a Nancy Kerrigan and cracked him in the arm.
Exactly.
I think he's alluding more to WrestleMania weekend, because the rumors were out there.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean,
oh boy.
Storyline. Listen, they're smart. They know how to make it work. I mean, right. we're going to talk about that. I don't even think we are going to talk about it in terms of the Raw rating. Is that part of the? Because we could just talk about that now that we were talking in our chat about the Raw rating taking such a dump.
I mean, honestly, we can. Someone bring it up.
Because that's what we talk about in our group chat, that how stagnant Raw is. And if we're going to dump on AEW, we have to be pretty fair about Raw and how it's lacking star power, of course, without Punk. And there's just, no Cody Rhodes anymore. When you think about, he was on that show a lot last year. And overall, Raw it's a chore to get through 3 hours. It really is. We talked about that all week. How I don't know how, if they're going to pitch that show to Netflix and Netflix took it, okay, you can have it, but you're only getting 2 hours. And then Netflix said, here's another $1 billion. Okay, we'll do a third hour. It's like, it's that easy to the third hour for no one to care about it, because there's just, it's hard. And it's not even about staying up to 11 o'clock. Okay, most adults are up to 11 o'clock. It's about just having to sit through that. And and listen, what's exciting. Go through the storylines on that show. We'll talk about it more, of course, in the Clash of the Castle preview. But I mean, there's not a lot going on to care about.
other than the fact that Dom Mysterio is getting seduced by Liv Morgan, which I know the Triple C was about to bring up, and he'll drink to that. I know that.
Notice how the ears turned around and twitched the
It's
second you said that.
What a champion! What a champion!
What a show! Good grief! Good grief!
Oh boy!
It's funny because once I texted him about it the day after, I was like, "Oh, what do you think about Liv Morgan and what she's doing to Dom? You know, that's pretty sad considering the fact that it's coming from a company who's currently going through a bunch of lawsuits." He was like, "Well, look, at the end of the day, I can't get mad at Dom. You know, my North American champion is literally the man to be able to go ahead and get through what he's doing." Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, I understand, because I know half of the wrestling community, along with myself, I'd probably fold like a pretzel who hasn't even been baked yet. But it's like, yeah, you know, Dom's doing his thing. Whatever.
My boy Dom Mysterio has shown testicular fortitude for not allowing Liv to get to him because mommy's waiting in the wings. My boy.
So Nate, what do you think about Raw? How hard is it to watch?
It has its points. The 3 hours, it can be a slog. It's the first. It's getting to the top of each hour. It's that's usually where the good stuff is going to happen. The top of the hour, then in the middle, in the quarter hours, you're going to have a lull. They're going to promote something else. They're going to talk about something, and then going forward, it's the top of the next hour. Okay, what's the next? And then to get to that same kind of that malaise, and then get back on. You don't have what was happening where the bloodline and that storyline was coming over from SmackDown. Every once in a blue moon, they would bring somebody that was associated with that onto Raw and then kind of infuse their ratings because you want to see that continuance going forward. They don't have that right now because the bloodline is kind of like, it's on the back pedal as they try to kind of reboot and rebuild that storyline. So right now, the top of the card on Raw seems to be what they're doing with CM Punk when he's healthy, Drew McIntyre getting Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and the Intercontinental Championship, and what they're doing with Walter and everything else. Those are the main parts of Raw. And of course, with Dom and Liv and the Judgment Day and Damian Priest, that brings its own, I guess, story to build up, but that's taking a little bit longer to get going. And it doesn't have the same punch, I don't think, as the Bloodline did in its strength.
So
I think that's what they're doing.
For those unaware, I mean, Raw did what was a composite of like 1.65 or something like that this past week.
1.609 is what they did, and the previous week they did 1.679. So they actually lost about 70,000 viewers, but that's negligible considering.
Okay. Yeah, but the key here is that the numbers are approaching pandemic numbers, which was not good then, and which was why Vince McMahon panicked and showed Paul Heyman the door with creative. And now there is no Vince McMahon. So does anyone panic? Does anyone push buttons? What happens? We talked about Cody Rhodes showing up on NXT. Does Cody Rhodes show up on Raw anytime soon? I mean, there has to be something done now that, of course, the NBA and the NHL will be ending shortly. If those numbers continue throughout the summer, what happens? I mean, how low can they go? The AEW fans start celebrating because Raw is coming down to their level. But meanwhile, they keep thinking too, let's celebrate poverty. Yeah, it's so exciting. Everyone sucks. Yeah.
But to be fair,
also the other thing that they have to worry about as far as the sports eyeballs are concerned, the Olympics are going to start on all of the NBC Universal networks. So is Raw going to be impacted by the Olympics in July? That's going to be something to think about also going forward, because that's a legitimate problem with content going against what they have. So they're going to have to see going forward, because they're going to have, after this, their next big pay-per-view is Money in the Bank. They're going to have to build that as well after Clash at the Castle. Is that going to be hurt or harmed by any of this? I guess we'll find out.
I mean, peeps, you start to think that, with the Olympics being in France, you do have like that 5-6 hour time difference where, like most of the things that usually go on, and you probably ends by like 5 o'clock or so. So you do have like, up until like, 3 hours to go ahead and have Raw or SmackDown. So I wouldn't say that it would be affected to a great detriment. But of course, through having to go ahead and watch all the Olympics that you could possibly get during the summer, you are going to have your issues. And then, of course, soccer is another big thing, within it, having to have like, Euros and like the Copa Americas and all these different types of like, outlets. Of course, that's going to go ahead and bring down the demographic, in like, you know, certain areas that are having like, you know, like games, and of course having it taking place in America around like those times where prime time is supposed to be prime time for, you know, the WWE, you know, that can go ahead and cause it as well. So it should be a rough summer for the WWE, of course, with being that there is injuries as well involved within it. But, you know, they should be able to go ahead and at least hit a stride towards and leading into Money in the Bank.
And that's another thing we discussed in the group chat is the return of CM Punk. And what does it mean? And does he actually do a program? I mean, we don't know. I mean, his time is borrowed as it is. We've seen all the injuries. We've seen now he has a glass body. And, I mean, we don't know if he's going to get hurt in the next match. So, therefore, what if nothing is guaranteed with Punk in terms of, I know, Nate, you talked about, he can be a commentator, he could be a manager, he could be all these other things. But ideally, everyone wants that one last run for Punk to become the world heavyweight champion.
Yes.
And he's not guaranteed that with all these injuries now that are creeping up on him. And he looks phenomenal. We saw the pictures online. It's like everybody in WWE now is getting jacked. AJ got jacked. Orton got jacked. Punk is jacked. Nate, when are you going to get jacked? Let's go.
We'll work on
Say your
it.
prayers and take some vitamins, brother.
Bend over and take that needle, brother.
Exactly.
Vitamins, brother.
But it's funny. It's funny how you guys didn't even go ahead and catch the, you know, the glass body reference from Chris. But I'll take it. It's all right. It happens. But look, last but not least on this part of Wrestling Crash Course, the NXT Battleground review. I'm not gonna get into this, so I don't care whatever any of you people think. That's the bottom line because the Phenomenal One said so. So you three can just go ahead and tell the world and the audience listening, what was your highlight of NXT Battleground?
Nate, I have to sit this one out because I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Okay. First off, the underground fight. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but the underground fight with Shayna Baszler and Lola Vice was actually rather entertaining. And the fact that they are trying to take a sport that is legitimate in MMA fighting and turning it into a sports entertainment part of it, they did a really good job with it, with the atmosphere, turning down the lights, taking away the ring ropes and having them fight all over the place. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. I was really shocked by the Women's North American Championship going to Kelani Jordan. I was not expecting that at all. So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Phenomenal One.
Nate, I thought that it was such a great call to have Kalani win the women's North American title. What a great call. Shawn Michaels, you're such a Hall of Famer. What a great call.
You know, in all reality, I actually thought Lash Legend was going to win that match, and probably.
I thought, but obviously they gave her the out, saying, going through the ladder, so that they gave her the out. So,
yes.
But I thought also Lash Legend was going to win.
Yes.
Phenomenal. You okay?
I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
I have to call it like I see it, like Jesse Ventura. I got to call it like it is.
Cheers to Kalani Jordan winning and becoming the first North American.
Peeps, you're drinking to that?
NXT
I thought you were my friend.
Look, you're my partner, my friend, but look, I'm thirsty.
Perfect timing too. Such a coincidence.
Yes.
It's funny that Triple C is rooting for somebody named Jordan.
Oh.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that one. And once again, the Crimson Red comes into play.
Oh,
I love it.
Listen, hey, at the end of the day, show me the money.
Wow.
You can do a stripper dance too, like Mercedes does. Let's get that stripper dance.
Good grief.
Hey, when the contract runs out, she'll be coming to a pole near you.
Oh man. Woo.
Oh goodness gracious.
Oh man. Well, look, that marks the end of Wrestling Crash Course today, guys. Of course, if you want to keep up with any of the social media news and updates in the world of professional wrestling, all you got to do is one thing and one thing only. Follow us on Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _main event or on Twitter right now at Saturday Main. And I just have to say, I applaud all of you right now who are on Twitter, or I should say Elon Musk's X, for watching. Because look, I don't even know why the hell he calls it X. Tongue twister. I hate it.
It's Twitter. Just call it what it is. It's Twitter.
Exactly. It's Twitter.
Be done with it.
But look, shout out to the 35 who are currently watching live on Twitter. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. It's so much great support seeing you. Really? You're flipping off the fans, Triple C.
I'll flip out the fans in a heartbeat.
Oh,
y'all deserve it.
He flips you off with love.
With love. How nice.
With love.
How nice. With love.
A big middle finger with a giant heart. Oh, good grief.
What is this, grandma cookies? Jesus. Anywho, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the first topic for today, and that is our predictions for later today's Clash at the Castle. Of course, there are about 6 matches on the card. I believe it's actually 5.
Yes.
And straight up, look, quality over quantity. We might be walking out with how many new champions tonight? There's a lot to go ahead and be in store. Maybe storylines get put into play a little bit more. But look, with that being said, let's just go ahead and get right into it. The first match that we have on that card today that we will go ahead and speak on is, of course, Bayley, who is the women's champion, versus Piper Niven. Thank God they changed her name to that back from Dewdrop. You know what? I digress. I won't even go ahead and get into it. I'm not going to do it to myself. No Dewdrop today. But Piper Niven, Bayley, Women's Championship. Peeps, who you got?
I got Bayley winning this one. It would be nice to see Piper win at home in Scotland. I just don't see that happening. I think Bayley's going to hold on to it at least until SummerSlam. But I think that's where they're headed to. So I think that this is going to be Bayley winning.
Got you. Triple C?
I agree with Nate. I like Bayley. Although there really hasn't been, we talked about earlier today about storylines. It really hasn't been a storyline with Bayley and Piper Niven. Granted, Piper will be the crowd favorite, but they also love Bayley also based off of last night. So I expect champion to stay champion.
Yes.
I can agree with that. Okay, Morton's Law. Chris,
yeah,
what do you think?
I think Bayley will retain only because I think the future is that Chelsea Green's going to be taking this title at some point. I can see then they're starting to warm to Chelsea. Even the fans like Chelsea now. And I think that's going to happen over time. However, I did want to point out, as we talked about earlier, about how hard it is to watch Raw. I felt really bad for Piper Niven when she came out and did her mic work on Raw, and the fans did the whole what thing. WWE fans respectful for a while, but I feel like now it's turning back to the what's, and that's a concern. And I just feel like this segment died. It really died on Raw because they did not care about one thing Piper was saying, even though it wasn't bad. It was not bad at all, but they just dumped all over it.
The fans kind of hijacked it to some degree, especially even with Cody when he was doing his promo with AJ Styles. They kept singing his name throughout the entire segment, and it was kind of hard to kind of hear what AJ was saying.
But I guess we all have Bayley going ahead and taking a W here, so I guess we had that penciled in, peeps. Second match, Sami Zayn, who is the Intercontinental Champion, versus Chad Gable. Is this even hard? I have Chad Gable winning this.
This is so bad. I want to jump in here first. This was another segment on Raw that made me sick. It was just so bad. The backstage stuff with Alpha Academy, it's awful. Sami Zayn, his acting is terrible. He's horrible. Let's be honest. Everyone loves Sami Zayn. I thought his first run was organic, and this run is forced. And I don't think people care as much. So therefore, that is hurt also in terms of people wanting to see Sami Zayn right now. And I mean, obviously at some point Otis is going to break. We know that. And this is probably going to be the incident where Otis will cost Gable the match. This is pretty. I'd be surprised if that does not happen.
Gotcha. Okay, so I got Gable, you got Zayn. Triple C, who do you have?
I actually disagree with Mr. 401. I actually think that on Raw, on the Raw side, Raw brand, whatever you want to call it, this is actually one of their better storylines. With Chad being the manipulator of Alpha Academy. I think that he's done a terrific job of becoming the heel and becoming the the type of character that we all thought that Chad could be. Although I don't see him retaining the title, I expect to see another quality match between them two. You are right on the aspect that I do feel that Sammy is cold right now, even though he beat Gunther at WrestleMania. I do feel that he is cold, and yeah, if you want to talk about the characters, acting is a little bit bad, but in a way, maybe for this storyline, because I mean, during his time with the Bloodline, I felt that those were some of his best work. But
Yes.
But overall, I think that it's actually been to me a good mid card feud, and I've actually enjoyed it.
Definitely so. Okay, peeps, what are your thoughts?
I actually like this feud also. I do agree. Sami Zayn and his over the top kind of like rah rah rah. It kind of gets cringy at times.
Yeah.
But it's mostly balanced out by how good Chad is as being a heel. And they have built that so much. We know that it's at some point Otis is going to snap, like Chris just said. He's going to flip out. He's going to do something. It's going to cost him. Does it happen here? Does it happen at another time? Or are they going to drag this on? Because at some point, everybody is going to leave Alpha Academy and leave Chad on his own. But I think what ends up happening, just for argument's sake, I'm actually thinking Chad is going to win here. Just on that, just for right now, just as devil's advocate, I think Chad is going to win it on this one.
But honestly, I think it happens with an interference from the Creed brothers. That's what I'm thinking. That's honestly.
And you think that'll be kind of like that 2.0? He's going to get his own new Alpha Academy.
And he gets the rest of them out. I don't think they end up leaving him because I guess he already foreshadows it and he sees it. So I guess he tries to capitalize with that by going ahead and bringing in his new group and kicking the rest of them out.
Like 2.0?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the world's greatest tag team.
Exactly.
2.0.
With Benjamin and Haas, yeah. Well then, okay, from that part, we go to the next match. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, versus, of course, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, and versus the team of Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. Mr. 411, it seems like you had a lot to go ahead and say within this sense. I know you had the thought process of thinking that they were buried and that they're just the sacrificial lambs in this match. What are your thoughts precisely, and who do you think is going to be walking out the way?
Well, initially I thought that, but then I realized that they're going to be in front of their home crowd. So I think the theory of the booking was, albeit just a complete burial on Raw of Fire and Dawn. What was that match? 3.5 minutes? I mean, that was a short squash for a team that is now going to compete on your next PLE, for the tag team titles. That was horribly done to those two. However, I thought about it and I said, okay, well, they're not going to lose twice. I would be shocked if they beat them in their hometown. So therefore, clearly Baszler and Stark are going to do the job because there's no way the titles are coming off of Jade and Bianca at this moment.
No.
That's what's going to happen. But still, there's a better way to book that match on Raw. There's a better way not to beat them the way they did. They didn't even have to have a winner. So this way you're going into the PLE thinking, oh, anyone could win this. You know what I mean? But that just made no sense. Did you guys agree with that when you watched it?
Yeah. Matter of fact, they didn't even have to book them to have a match. They could have done something where they interfered in one of the other matches or to show that they're there. Show them at ringside. Show them. They've been doing a lot of stuff with Alba Fire with the flaming bat and coming out there and showing how creepy they are. They could have done any of those instead. So, but yeah, I think Bianca and Jade are going to win this. And unfortunately, I think that Zoe Stark and Baszler are going to be the ones that are going to be looking up at the lights.
Wow. Okay, so I guess I got Bianca and Jade. You have Bianca and Jade. Okay, Triple C, you're on the same route here?
Yeah, I'm on the same route. There's really not much to add here. The tag division, we talk about storylines. And, until they start building, some of these ladies, in the tag team division, I expect pretty much, a dominant victory for Bianca and Cargill.
All right, then. Now, next match, of course, this is going to be not one-sided. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship and the Judgment Day, along with your greatest North American champion of all time, is barred from ringside, Triple C. So let's be honest here. Does Drew walk away in his hometown with the title, or does Damian Priest still retain?
I think that although some of the comments that Drew have said about Damian over the last few weeks, as far as kind of feeling like a paper champion, I actually agree, because if you think about it, Damian, although he, you could say the last couple of weeks he's looked, I don't want to say dominant, but he's kind of feel like the de facto leader of Judgment Day. First of all, he has not had a title defense. That's number one. Since he's been champion, no title defenses. At least
you can add Jey Uso at Backlash.
Well, I'm sorry. You know what? You're right. All right. Okay. So he did have the one title defense. It was saying, at Backlash. No, you're right about that. He has not felt Priest. He has not felt as a big time champion. Kind of like what Morton talked about. With Swerve. Like he
transitional.
He's felt like a transitional champion. Me, I actually think that unless Punk, comes out, and cost Drew the title, which I'd prefer that doesn't happen. I'd actually see Drew. I would like to see Drew take on Punk for the title at SummerSlam. So I'm going with Drew winning in his hometown. I think Drew takes the title.
Wow. Okay. Mr. 401, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just had a thought that came to me from Raw, which was that the stipulation on Raw, we talked about this in the group chat, that you just recently did Cody Rhodes, where if he won, then the bloodline would be barred from ringside. Then they go ahead and do it again with Drew. Oh, if you beat Finn Balor, then Judgment Day is barred from ringside. Wasn't that a bit too fresh to do that so soon? And granted, we got the different results. It actually happened this time. But I feel like it was kind of lazy that they went back to that so fast. And also the other thought I had was that I thought Priest really lacked anything in that little standoff that he had with McIntyre. McIntyre carried that segment. Priest didn't look lost, but he looked like he didn't have any confidence. There was no aura about Priest. Made you feel like he was a world heavyweight champion. It just made you feel like he was another guy in the ring. And this is why I think they're going to look at that also. And I know Triple C referenced Punk. We've seen photos. Punk is there. We know he's there. So they could definitely involve Punk. Would that be lazy booking? It could be. But that's another route they can go to cost Drew. But ultimately, I think it's time to pull the trigger and give Drew the title.
Speaking. Okay, Peeps, your thoughts?
Yeah. Without question, I think that this is the way that this has been built, and the fact that they've made this personal for Drew, because he talked about during the kickoff show about the surgery that his wife is going through, the fact that he's missed a lot of family outings, and then all of the things that have happened over the last few months, and the fact that he missed an opportunity last year to beat Roman at the last Clash at the Castle. So this time is the time. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Drew is going to win, and that sets up CM Punk potentially being there saying, well, I'm clear to wrestle. I'm next to go and get in the ring with you. And maybe build that up. Exactly.
Yeah. You know what I'm thinking? It's Scotland. It's Clash at the Castle. It's Drew's hometown. Punk does come out to try to cost Drew the title. Ends up kind of going ahead and backfiring on him. Drew ends up winning the title. And he does the old Money in the Bank 2011. Blows a kiss to Punk at the barricade and walks through his hometown crowd, World Heavyweight Champion. That's what I think it ends at. Punk seething with rage, looking to see that the one person that he hates since he's joined WWE back again at November Survivor Series is now world champion, and he's mocking him. What better way to continue to build that feud? Probably leading into SummerSlam. Probably leading into another pay-per-view where it can all go down at. That's what I'm most likely thinking of, and I can for sure see that go down. But it seems like we all are on the same page within Drew going ahead and winning the title.
Yes.
Last match.
Well, real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off. And furthermore, if it is in fact because right now the way the card is listed, that is the main event. We don't know what will be the main event today, but if Drew is going to win the title, that has to be the main event.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
Similar to what they did at SummerSlam 92 with Bulldog and Bret Hart.
Yes.
You're going to be in the home country. The home countryman is going to be there. You're going to do that. Make that the main event. Makes perfect sense.
Definitely so. The last match where we have out here is the I Quit match for the Undisputed WWE Championship. AJ Styles versus the champion himself, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Just easily, guys. Just 2 questions and you guys can answer them. Who do you have going out? And does Cody bleed tonight? Triple C, we'll start with you.
No, I don't feel Cody needs to bleed tonight. I expect Cody to be champion going into WrestleMania next year, so I'm not expecting Cody to lose this. I know they're gonna put up, those 2 guys, professional guys. They're gonna put up a great match. I kind of hate I Quit matches. I'll be honest with you. Kind of like those last man standing matches. I kind of hate those kinds of matches. But I am expecting a good match between those 2 because I don't think they can deliver bad matches. But again, it's not really a no-brainer. I think Cody's gonna stay champion.
Got you, Mr. 411.
Yeah, this is Cody. Cody's winning here, but he will bleed. He will bleed. I'm calling him. He will bleed, and it makes you think about AJ's career and how it's a phenomenal career, no pun intended. And him gonna go out and lose this match, and what happens after this match now? Because he already just teased retirement. So
TNA.
What do you do with him after? Well, I mean, we talked about. Well, actually, we didn't talk about it on the show with seeing Jordan Grace coming over to WWE. Could more people go over to TNA to give them a little boost? Because if AJ did go home for a little while, that would be fun to see. But then, I was thinking, and I referenced it in our group chat, how much of a disgrace it was that AJ Styles lost the graveyard match to The Undertaker. I mean, I still can't get over that.
Listen, at the end of the day, we've always talked about on this show. I know Phenomenal One. You obviously have recreated Saturday Afternoon's Main Event again. One thing that we always talked about is like on your way out, you do the honors, but there was no reason for the Undertaker to do the honors. For
Didn't
what?
he do the honors already once?
He did it at WrestleMania in a crowd with Roman Reigns, so there was no reason for the Undertaker to do the honors in his final match at WrestleMania during the pandemic. Thank you very much. I digress.
Oh, there we go.
For those who aren't aware, we're going to talk about the history of Same in a little while. But I mean, as the Triple C is the biggest Undertaker fan, I am the biggest. And one of these 2 people lost a body bag match in MSG, and it wasn't this guy.
If it wasn't on TV, it didn't happen.
Good grief.
Good grief.
Man.
It was on MSG. What are you talking about? It was on MSG Network.
I don't remember that.
His monitor went blank, McMahon.
I didn't have cable at that time.
I was just about to say.
This monitor went blank.
Didn't have cable, Monsoon. Good grief. But peeps, to end off the first half of Same, who do you have winning this match? And does the American Nightmare wear the crimson mask?
Cody wins, bleeds. Oh, there you go.
Awesome.
Oh, man, great. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you guys will enjoy Clash at the Castle later today. Will be coming up on your televisions at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Exactly. But look, with that being said, that marks the end of the first half of Same. When we come back, we're going to have our questions and then our last topic for today's show, how Same came to be. So stay tuned. Do not go anywhere because the second half of Saturday afternoon's Main Event is coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the second half of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, Season 7, Episode 17. I, the Phenomenal One. Right below me is the Triple C. To my right is the Peeps Nate. And diagonally is Mr. 411 Christopher Morton. Now look, ladies and gentlemen, now's the part for our question segment. Here we go with the Dingo Warrior stuff. But... of course, the part of our questions, you guys know that we enjoy these things. If you guys want to be a part of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, all you got to do is one thing and one thing only. DM us a question at Saturday Afternoon's _main event on Instagram. And in the words of the wrestling god, WWE Hall of Famer JBL, I guarantee it'll be on the next episode of the show. And with that being said, the first question goes to Master Sean 007. He says, greetings, gentlemen. What is the real reason as to why the WWE is collaborating with TNA? Is it because they want to bring in experienced talent and not have to take off the main shows? So, Peeps, do you want to answer this first, or?
Yeah, I'll take this one first. Basically, I think what TNA is doing right now is that they're trying to broaden their audience. They have a product that is, for whatever people think, it's been consistently there. It's been improving. It doesn't hurt that they're trying to get more exposure, and they have a good working relationship with WWE, so that doesn't hurt. Second of all, WWE also sees an avenue where they can then kind of cross-promote, get their talent on their show, and then they have talent exchanges, which will then help all of the companies, both the TNA and WWE, gets them a little more notoriety, gets them a little more mainstream attention, and it only helps both as they're going forward. You have guys that are on the roster in WWE that might not be getting the exposure that they want, or they're just not getting enough of a push outside of what they're doing now. So you put them on TNA, you come up with some kind of storyline that works, maybe cross-promotional, not necessarily an invasion. You do that, and then you bring guys from TNA who may need just a little bit more of a push, a little more exposure. You put them on NXT, maybe you put them on Raw one day, or whatever it is, and then it'll work.
So in like a baseball analogy, NXT is the AAA and TNA is AA. What does that mean? It's like another farm system. Here, you take our guys, develop them a little bit. I don't know.
And it works.
I mean,
people
honestly,
are more positive about this.
I mean, would you guys think that like there's a chance that we get to see a Worlds Collide type of PLE with NXT and TNA, or do we see TNA move up with the big boys and probably be a part of Survivor Series? What is? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, I think Worlds Collide would make more sense to be back, right?
War Games!
Imagine.
Hey, listen, we could get DIY against the Motor City Machine Guns. That's probably the best thing we can get.
Oh, that would be great.
Give me Oba Femi versus Moose, and I'll be fine for the rest of the week.
Moose.
Let me stop.
Moose.
But, Triple C, what are your thoughts on this in itself?
Well, first off, it's a win-win for TNA. Anytime you can, cross promote, having Grace go to NXT, maybe, we talk about, the main roster, maybe it would just work just for NXT only. And maybe, TNA and NXT, going back and forth, maybe that would be the better thing to do. And, you guys did bring up, like an invasion angle. Maybe I could see that working more for NXT, as the third brand for WWE with TNA. And I think that would work much better in that aspect. Yeah, I mean, you if you want to, take somebody from the main roster, WWE, like I said to Phenomenal One a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, an Xavier Woods or, maybe a Kofi or something of that nature. But now that the Hardys are there, Jeff Hardy being there, maybe that's a little star power there. So maybe you'd want to bring them to the main roster. But for me, it's a win-win for TNA. WWE does help them because you have a working relationship with TNA. So, it does benefit WWE, but it's more for TNA than, WWE.
Did you say Xavier Woods, aka Consequences Creed?
Consequences Creed, exactly
There you go.
right. Yeah.
There we go.
Would you call him Consequences Creed if he ever went to TNA, under WWE umbrella?
I would love to see that happen, just to be like, what is Consequences Creed doing in the Impact Zone? Just, why not? Why not? I'd get a good kick out of it. But I mean, hey, who knows? We get to see Joe Hendry this week on NXT.
Oh, right,
He's in that Battle Royal. So I mean,
yes.
I can only
We
imagine
believe.
I can only imagine how many people are going to start singing that song. I mean, it's so insane. It's so insane to think that Joe Hendry literally has a billboard on the OVO Hydro where they're going to have Clash at the Castle tonight. He has his own billboard outside of that arena in Scotland. So it's only in due time that we get to see Joe Hendry.
Triple C, do you believe in Joe Hendry?
No. More than he believes in Taz.
No.
I think he only believes in one person, and that is Dom.
Oh,
or the Undertaker. I thought he was going to.
Wow.
Yes.
He didn't even consider the Undertaker. You consider Dominic? What a disgrace. You call yourself a creature of the night and you're doing stuff like this?
I'm sorry, Phenomenal One. Where's Jada Parker again?
Radio silence.
It's all right. I digress.
Next question, please.
Yeah, next.
Next question. Long Island Isaiah says, I hear that there are talks to bring back Bad Blood as a PLE. What is one old WWF/WWE pay-per-view that you guys would like to see make a return as a PLE? I got one. Great Balls of Fire. I digress. I'm playing with you guys. I'm messing with you guys. Never that. But we'll pass it to Peep Stage first because I see Triple C kind of thinking as to which one he'll probably want to have. You have one. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get to you. Peeps, what do you think?
If it's an old WWE pay-per-view, well, they've thrown. You know what? There really aren't many old pay-per-views that I actually like that they've gotten rid of that I would want to bring back because they've gone through so many over the years. Armageddon is one that they haven't used in a while. Backlash was taken off, and then they got back with that and brought that in there. No Mercy, they put that on the NXT roster. So some of those premium live events that were pay-per-views, they've actually kind of associated with NXT. So I'm actually fine with what they're doing to keep those names going. But Starrcade, Halloween Havoc, those are the ones that I cared about the most.
How about they bring back In Your House and have it on Nature's Roof?
That's an inside joke, folks.
Right.
Triple C, what do you?
Me personally, I think Taboo Tuesday, and the reason why I say that is that the interactive, where fans get to choose. So I think that if WWE did that for one night, legitimately do it. You know what I'm saying? And again, it doesn't have to be Taboo Tuesday. I just whatever we'll call it.
Cyber Sunday.
I mean, wait. Cyber Sunday, right? It's called Cyber Sunday. Was it called Cyber?
They had Taboo Tuesday, and then they
it was Cyber Monday actually that
Cyber
they did.
Monday.
Monday.
Right.
And even more so. Does anybody care about the pay-per-view that we all are looking forward to? Is this Tuesday in Texas? No one wants to bring that back. No one wants to bring that back.
Hulk Hogan is such a cheater. The fact that
course.
he used the urn and used the ashes of Undertaker's parents, to blind the Undertaker and cost the Undertaker the world title only after 4 days of holding that belt?
Yes.
What a disgrace.
Chris, isn't it continuously funny that he's doing this with red on and he has Hogan's belt in the background? I mean, you're not letting this up, man. The iron.
Do you have any Hollywood fries with you right there, too?
I need some.
Good grief. Make sure to get some after this. But look, I would say Armageddon for me. I mean, just the thought of having to hear the end is near. Thinking of all the main events that we've had over the years with Armageddon. I mean, for God's sakes, Randy Orton versus Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell. The triple threat match with Taker, Batista, and Edge, where you had Hawkins and Ryder make their debuts as Edge's stunt doubles. So-and-so, Jeff Hardy winning the WWE title from there. What'd you say?
Didn't the six-pack challenge happen at Armageddon?
Yeah, inside Hell in a Cell.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, where The Rock had his, his most famous promo. I did it for The Rock. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, all that good stuff. That good lead up in, what was it, 2000? I believe so.
Yes. Wasn't that the one where Rikishi was chucked off the top of the Hell in a Cell?
Yeah.
And landed in a giant truck full of hay?
Yeah, that Vince was currently trying to go ahead and direct and drive.
Yes.
Grief. What good times. Anywho, that marks the end of the questions for same. Of course, you guys, as I said, we enjoy these questions. You want to send in more? You want to be a part of the show? DM them the Saturday afternoons _main event on Instagram. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, shows all ages, that marks the end of everything else that we've had, except for one thing. And here's what I just have to say before I even go ahead and get started with this. I've had the opportunity of doing this show for 3 years, and never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd be able to be sitting here for the first time ever with the other 3 individuals that are in the studio with me. You have the Peep Snakes, you have Mr. 411, you have the Triple C, and by far, I just have to say to each and every single one of you guys, thank you for setting a blueprint for me. Thank you for giving me a shot at doing what I do now. Because if it wasn't for those little 8 tracks that you guys would usually tape the show with that got into my possession, I probably wouldn't be sitting here doing Saturday afternoon's main event in the 21st century. So I just have to say thank you to you guys.
No problem.
Yeah.
Well, look.
Cheers.
The floor is yours.
Okay.
I just have to go ahead and ask because, of course, this is same, but this was your baby before. It is what it is today. So, guys, let's take a stroll down memory lane. How did this all happen?
I'll take it from here if you guys don't mind.
Go right on ahead.
Well, so we were part of a sports show at WKRB-FM, Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn, New York, circa 1995. And on that sports show, out of nowhere, we just started talking wrestling. And I remember talking to Triple C going, hey, why don't we have a segment on that show? And he was like, well, why not? Let's do it. So it became like a 30-minute segment.
Be honest, Chris.
What's that?
I was against it. You had to convince me.
I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah.
The history I forgot about. You were opposed to it. Okay, I stand corrected.
Right.
So once I convinced him, we did 30 minutes, and it started to do well. And then we realized over time it just became that more popular. And then I believe the show that was on after us vacated. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
And so we had a 3-hour window. And while it was ambitious of us to try to do 3 hours, we went ahead and rolled the dice on it. And it was probably the greatest risk we ever made at that point in our lives. And it just became so popular. We just didn't know how popular it was because we were on. So here's the story. 90.9 FM in Brooklyn was 10 watts. That was it. And 10 watts means you could probably get it for about what? How many miles was the radius? 5 miles?
I believe it was about between 4 and 5 miles, and depending on if your foot was halfway out your apartment, you'd be able to get it or not.
Right. If the weather was nice, you try to get a little bit further. Right.
So you could really not pick us up that much via the radio. Although it did go more west into Queens, or is it east into Queens?
I think so. I think it was more west. Yeah.
So you had a better chance in getting us, which we later learned we had a bigger audience in Queens than we had ever imagined.
By the way, my hometown of Queens, New York. It is the greatest borough in my hometown of New York.
So there's a lot of explaining as we do this. We are inside jokes. So the reason he had adopted Queens is because when he discovered that Taz was from Brooklyn, he wanted nothing to do with Brooklyn anymore because he felt it was a disgrace that a piece of trailer park trash like Taz would represent Brooklyn. So then he adopted Queens.
Yes.
He adopted Queens.
And as our show continued to go, that's right. We got lucky because we had Nate, if you would describe BCAT and tell everybody the story of BCAT, I'll give it to you.
Yes. Well, BCAT is a local cable access station where they would showcase on their television airwaves. Public access, people would do cooking shows and they would do talk shows and that kind of thing. But what they did is during the weekends and during off hours, they would have blocks of time where they didn't show any programming. So then they would then simulcast local college radio stations on their network. So they would use Kingsborough's radio, and then they would simulcast that. At that time, that's when we were doing our show. We were doing, at the time, it was called WKRB Sports Talk, which was a long-running sports show that we all did. And then what would happen is during certain times of the year, they would change from having the first half of our sports show on to having part of the wrestling show on. Then certain times of the year, they would change from having no part of our sports show on to having all of the wrestling show on. And I remember Triple C had this conversation with me shortly after, because the first wrestling show that you guys did, I wasn't there. And he called me and said, you know what? This wrestling show we did was actually pretty good. We should continue to do it. And I was like, you know what? We'll go with it. And it blew up from there. And we went on and did that show, and then it continued. And it had got to the point where we had done the show so long, as we were doing it, people were calling in from BCAT. Oh, what's going on? Where's the show? We haven't heard it in a while. And they would call the BCAT offices wondering, where's the show? Where's the wrestling show? We were listening to the show, and then all of a sudden it got cut off. So, yeah, we got really popular, and I think we were way ahead of our time.
Not to mention that what you just said, to piggyback off of that, is that when we were not on BCAT, we still had the people calling us going, we can't hear the show. And then I guess what happened was that they called BCAT to the point where BCAT, did they almost force their hands to like put our show on every week? Is that what happened? Because I don't know the truth.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. They would work. We would call, and then they will call us back. They're going to give us 30 minutes. So let's do the best stuff that we can in that 30 minutes. And then it was almost like a negotiation for hostages or something, like, well, if you give us 30 minutes, we won't call you until next week. Or it was funny. It was really funny, but it worked because.
Right. All 3 hours was
Yes, it had gotten to the point where, and Triple C can talk to this one as well. We finished doing a show one day. I think it was like during the summer. We went to a local McDonald's where Triple C would get his, as he called them, his Hollywood fries. And
the good days.
Yes, the good old days. And we were talking about the show, etc. And then there was a woman and her kid where they were talking, and they listened to our conversation. Oh, you guys do a radio show, wrestling, etc., etc. It's like, yes. And if the Triple C remembers, we gave this kid like an autograph on a napkin before they left, because it was like, oh, maybe when you guys blow up, we'll have something of you, etc., etc. And we signed it on the napkin. Thank you. And then they left, and we sat there for about 10 minutes like, wow, autographs for people we don't even know about for a show that we were doing. And it started to really balloon from there. And that's where the love of not only wrestling, but just broadcasting and what we did came in here. And all of us are now bonded by the fact that we've known each other so long. And now the fact that my partner, who I've been doing the show with for the last 3 years, is now included in all of this. And I could not be happier that all of us are still involved and are able to do this, and we've come full circle.
And if we could talk about, if Triple C can talk about this, actually, this is perfect for you, is that not only were you a producer, but you were also a phone screen caller. Like, you would deal with and kid you not, like, there would be times where we couldn't take every call. That is how popular the show became. We had so many calls. Triple C, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Chris, I mean, the fact that, like I said, Chris, you convinced me to do it, Sean, and one person that's kind of left out of this, it was a dear friend to us. He's no longer here. His name was Ian Price. We used to call him Ian Chaotic, and he was the first person to, read the dirt sheets and stuff like that.
Right.
And, so I have to point that part out. One thing I have to say, doing a show, and again, in the advent before, again, we were doing stuff that we didn't, for us, we were just doing it just for us three, not realizing how great it was. And, and we would just do the shows like to entertain ourselves. And then when we got to the point where, whatever, BCAT, and again, in a small 5-mile radius on a radio. And we're just thinking like, okay, whatever. Not many people are listening. And then it just started where people started calling us and you know, I mean, it got to the point, like I said, I mean, I would literally, I would have a big headset, whatever, and I'm like literally talking to somebody on the air, listening to Nate, and he'd be across from me, and I'm listening to Nate, and I'd always have Mr. 401 with me in studio, and he'd be right beside me, and I'm listening to them two playing music, and again, at the time, it was unheard of, you know, and when we did a wrestling show, it was unheard of. It got to the point that we were, again, not getting huge, but we did not realize how many people we were affecting. And yes. I remember Mr. 401 had a great job where, you know, we got RVD on the show. I believe you got Meltzer, right? Did you get Meltzer?
Even though Meltzer, okay, here's a great story. Meltzer didn't understand the time difference. This is how smart Dave is, by the way. So I still thank him, by the way, to this day for coming on the show back then. But yes, he's in Pacific time. And I tried to explain to him, Dave, we want you to come on the show at 3 o'clock Eastern time, which would be 12 o'clock Pacific time. So to no surprise, Dave butchered that, and he called us later on after that. Well, when we were ending, he called us at 6 o'clock, which is 3 o'clock Pacific time. And like, Dave, we're done. But then we realized the show after us wasn't there yet. So we recorded, and while we were still live, we had him on technically after the show was over, but then we replayed it the following week. So it was still nice to have him on.
Yes.
Right. And doing the show again, this is pre-YouTube, pre-social media. Again, we did not realize how we affected a lot of people. And once we were actually done doing the show, and by the way we were done doing the show is that we went on our own terms in the aspect of like we were bashing our radio station, not a play off of the radio station. Like we would literally be bashing the radio station that we worked for, and we didn't care, and we were just like, we're just gonna say what's on our minds. We're gonna, you know, we didn't care, and they practically fired us, you know, during the middle of the week. And you know, a lot of fans would call, you know, after we were fired, and you know, and basically say, oh, you know, we miss these guys, to the point like over the years, Phenomenal One can attest to that. You know, you could chime in. And, you know, we did not realize how much of an effect that we had on, at least in New York, how much of an effect that we had on a lot of people. And Phenomenal One, who, you know, went to AEW show in Florida.
Yeah, I'll tell the story. I got you. Yeah, because I remember just instantly out of just one day, I found out AEW was going to be coming to Miami. And I was like, oh, you know what? You know, this is like 2021-ish. And like, this is fresh off of like CM Punk going ahead and joining the company. And I was like, oh my gosh, Danielson, Punk, Adam Cole. I was like, oh man, you know what? I gotta go ahead and like, you know, go see it. So, you know, I go into the arena, you know, for the second night of the show, and you know, I'm kind of sitting there, and you know, like we're, you know, it's kind of like me and a group of other fans, and casually I meet this man and his wife, who are wearing like, you know, CM Punk tees, like, you know, in a row behind me, and I'm like, you know, we're kind of sitting there talking because like he sees that I have a Britt Baker tee on. You know, this is before the time of like, you know, meeting that specimen of a woman named Jada Parker. God bless her soul.
Stop Mysterio.
Please don't even get me started, Triple C, okay?
Yes.
We're not doing this. But as I kind of like sat there, we were kind of like, you know, talking about, you know, our tees. He said that, you know, he's from Brooklyn, and that, you know, he was casually like, you know, he went to AEW Grand Slam. And, you know, how he enjoyed that and stuff. And, like, you know, we're still talking. He was like, oh, so, like, you know, like, I was like, yeah, you know, for me, I like going ahead and going to these shows because I get to go ahead and, like, you know, post some of the content, you know, for my wrestling show. He's like, oh, you got a wrestling show? I like listening to a bunch of, like, you know, different wrestling podcasts and stuff. So, like, yo, give me, like, your name. I'll go ahead and, like, follow you on YouTube or, like, whatever you have, like, a platform on. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Just type in the name Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. And it seemed like the guy had an epiphany. Like, when I tell you, he kind of, like, looked up for a second, and I was like, wait, why is he looking up like that? He was like, that's funny. I used to, like, listen to this show as a kid. Like, I think that used to get called that. I don't know. Because there used to be this one guy who developed this, like, who developed this love from me. Because for some reason now, I'm 30-something and I hate Taz. And from that point, I sat there and I was like, holy hell. He listened to the show. And I was like, wait. You're talking about the Triple C. He was like, yeah. I was like, that's my uncle. He was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, no, I'm serious. He was like, wait, so like, why are you? I was like, where'd it go? He was like, it's a long story. One day, if you're probably listening, you'll probably hear the whole story. But like,
if you're listening to it, you're listening to it right now.
Yeah, you're listening
there you
to
go.
it right now, man.
There you go.
But all in all honesty, I sat there and I remember going home that night and I was just like, wow. It's crazy how the world works sometimes. Because I was just like, I'm in a state that is about 1,000 miles away from Brooklyn, New York. And here I am meeting somebody who's at an AEW show, married, has his own children, and he's casually talking about how he was a kid listening to your show. And I'm like, wow. Now that reach is just like, okay, now like when you guys is like, when my uncle's like, oh, like, you know, we had a huge audience. I don't think we were that big. From him just saying that to me, I was like, okay, at that point, y'all are big. Because if he's remembering that out of his childhood and he still has a hatred for Taz of all people, then it seems like you guys were doing something right. You know, that's how I saw it. But it's honestly crazy how big of a reach you guys had. But behind the scenes, how was it just doing the show? Because we talk about the professional stance of it. What was the funnier stance of things? Like, how was it like just clicking together almost every single day doing the show?
Let me take this real quick. So some of the creative stuff was always Mr. 411. He would always, after the show, we would always, like I said, either go to McDonald's or either go to my house, or go to Burger King, like go one of these fast food places, and then we would brainstorm, and he would always come up with cycles. Mind you, we're coming up with angles. Think about this. We're coming up with angles on a radio show. You don't know what we look like, nothing like that. You're just going by the voices. And Mr. Vaughn would come up with all these different creative stuff and things like that. And one of the things Mr. Vaughn said to me, he goes, Triple C, I want you to turn on the fans. And I remember looking at him, I was like, what? I was like, how can I turn on the fans? I was like, yo, the fans. I was like, this is why we do this show. I was like, why would I want to turn on the fans? I'll make the long story short. That was the greatest thing that I remember ever doing on the radio, was turning on the fans, and to the point where I'll never forget this. There was one caller he would always call, and it was me being the huge Undertaker fan, and he was an Undertaker fan himself, whatever. And then he would always call the show, and then I turned on him. I basically trashed him and everything like that. And his mother, after the end of the show, called us. Remember that?
Yes.
His mother called to specifically speak to me, and she literally cursed me out.
Wow.
I mean,
how dare you talk to my son that way?
Right.
You listen to your show.
Right. And I remember saying to myself, I was like, this is awesome. This is great. Because what we're doing is it's affecting people. And again, we did not realize please understand, fans that are listening, we were way ahead of our time. And sometimes I always tell, my nephew, I always tell, Nate and 411, like, man, if we were doing the show at this current time, it would have been a completely different story, because we were doing a lot of things that, was, really and truthfully just unbelievable, where we're like, wow. I mean, the things we were doing is affecting people. Like, we were literally lying to people. I remember Mr. 411, there was 1 week I didn't even show up. And 411 said to me, he goes, I'm going to lie and tell the people that I remember going to Shea Stadium, going to a Mets playoff game, and someone said that, you know what, we're gonna tell the people that the Triple C got hit with a baseball or got hit with something, and then fans tuned in. I mean, fans listened to the show saying they watched the news. Wondered what happened to the Triple C, and I was just like, are you kidding me? This is the most stupidest things that we're saying, but it was great radio.
Yes.
It was great radio. And I thank 411 and Nate for, listen, it's not a shoot, it's not a promo. Listen, those years doing a radio show with those two guys that you see on your screen, those were some of the best times of my life that I'll always cherish and I'll always appreciate, because I had such a great time doing those shows. So just the fact that, we're here together to do this Saturday afternoon's main event, a show that we all created, now that it's been transferred over to, Phenomenal One and Nate, consistently doing the show. I just want to say thank you guys, because it really, from the bottom of my heart, was such a great time doing that show.
Yes.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, aside from MJF, I don't think anyone had more heat in AEW ever in the Triple C had on that show. And then I also became the heel, because when we talk about, there's a few things I want to get through. I know we only have a few minutes left with Clash of the Castle starting at 2, but just a few things I want to run down. You guys can talk about it if you can. Like we learned that Joel Gertner listened to the show and even was able to get, because I used to go to ECW shows all the time back circa 99, 2000. I was at every show pretty much.
Yes.
And I would go to like CyberSlam, and they would have all the wrestlers there. And I would get many wrestlers to cut station identifications for us. Joel Gertner cut one of the greatest ones ever. If you've heard it, Phenomenal One, it's by far the best thing you'll ever hear in your life. We had, I think, like 5 different wrestlers cut station IDs for us back then. If you remember at Triple C, it became so popular that we actually had radio giveaways. You gave away WWE cassettes or videotapes, rather, to people at home.
Yes.
I would buy it out of my own pocket, and Mr. Fomo would come up with questions and stuff like
trivia.
that, like trivia and things like that, and we let the show evolve. And I would literally take the tapes. I would have 411 and Nate sign the paper. I would sign it also, saying thank you for listening. Please tell all your friends, tell all your buddies and all of that about the show. And we will still do giveaways and whatever that we could. Again, we will do it out of our own pockets, and we didn't care. And we were like, whatever for the fans. And we would always do it, for the fans. And again, doing different segments and everything that we could come up with. The only thing that really annoyed me doing the show, Nate never turned heel.
He was the baby face. Look at that face.
Baby face.
Yes, they tried for the longest time to get me to turn heel, and that's
never worked.
It was a fight and a struggle to try to get Nate to turn, and he would never do it.
He wouldn't do
it. His ground.
Well, how about the fact that a lot of people don't know this, that we had our only wrestling match ever, which took forever to happen because we had 2 other people contributing to the show. Powerbomb Mike, who did a hotline back then, he would come in and be a voice for us. And he was going to be our ring announcer / commentator for the Mr. 4-on-1 versus Nate's match. But he became unavailable over time, so we had someone else do it, a guy named Powerbomb Mike, who didn't exactly have the greatest radio voice. So we had to really get creative in how we did this. So
who booked it? Who booked it and who came over? Who went over?
Well, I'm gonna tell you that right now. Is like then. So what I decided was, because obviously we're in a radio station with no cameras, no one can see anything. So I said this has to be fast. We can't have an actual wrestling match. So I thought that the way it would go is that right after the bell rings, I would start talking trash to everybody, and then of course Nate would come and schoolboy me. And 1, 2, 3, and that's how it went down. The match was 5 seconds long because anything else would make no sense. So he schoolboyed me. I went nuts, went on the microphone, bashed everybody. It was so much fun. Could the voiceover been better? Yes, whatever. It wasn't perfect, but we worked with it. And Nate got the gloat forever. And by the way, unlike Hulk Hogan, I never got my win back. So Nate still has the only win. Insane history, the only win over me.
And every once in a while, he was like, I'm going to get that win back at some point. I was like, we'll figure it out. Yes. And that's yes.
Well, look, in that sense, I want to go ahead and just touch on one more thing. And, speaking on Triple C's profound love for, the business, speaking on ECW, and speaking on staying in character, let's go ahead and get on one story of how bonded you guys are and how used to you are to my Uncle the Triple C's antics when it comes to thunder and a fairy. So
I can attest to this.
Lightning and a fairy, Mr. 411. Come on now. It has to read back to you.
This is one of the funniest stories I have ever had to tell because I was okay. We were going to an ECW show in Staten Island. Yes. Now, Chris was already there at the place where we were going to meet up with him. So get on the Staten Island ferry. It just so happens that the show happened in the summer, very humid, in the middle of a thunderstorm. Keep that in mind. Now, Triple C's favorite wrestler, as you can tell, is The Undertaker. Well, while we're halfway across as we're about to pull into St. George, as we're trying to get back into Staten Island, the heavens opened up. And then we start hearing thunderclaps, thunderclaps, thunderclaps. And then all of a sudden, the ferry, crack, boom, boom. The ferry got hit with lightning. And you can hear the lightning, the thunder reverberate throughout the ferry. So what ended up happening is, after that happened, and everybody's panicking, oh, what the heck is going on? This fool right here, what he's doing is, oh, my creatures of the night. As I sit here and I look before us, I feel calm. And he rolls his eyes into the back of his head and starts looking around as all the creatures of the night as I go ahead. And I looked at this guy, I was like, are you serious? The boat pulls in, it kind of subsides, and then I had to tell Morton what happened when we got off, and he could not stop laughing the whole time after I told him.
Wait, the best part about the story is that people were legit scared, right? And he
yes,
was this, right?
Yes,
never broke character.
Never broke character.
Oh man, that is probably the funniest incident that we've all experienced, which is without question.
Yeah, but then we got to back off of that story by the fact that when we went to that ECW show, the infamous riot took place.
Yes.
Show.
Yes.
And people don't know this, so here's the story. Apparently, the Dudley Boys got into it with some fans, and people started throwing punches, and people got locked up. Stuff happened, but here's what we later learned: is that a lot of the people in the crowd were plants from the Johnny Rod School of Wrestling. So what happened was when people started throwing punches, other fans didn't know what was going on. And they got involved. So the Dudley Boys ended up knocking out a few fans that weren't part of the school because they got rowdy. So it just became what a scene that was. We witnessed that, Rich.
Yes.
Yes.
Great times. Great times.
So
Yes.
look, gentlemen, that being said, like, what is like one word to describe the run that you guys had? Each of you guys can go ahead and like use a word. Like, peeps.
Yeah, Nate.
I'll start off and I'll say it. The one word that I could use is trend setting, because we were the progenitor of a lot of people who do podcasts now, not to toot our own horn, so to speak, but we were literally decades ahead of where a lot of people are today. So I think trend setting.
Mr. 411?
I'll use your name. It was phenomenal. It was simply phenomenal. Everything about it. It was, and here's another story I'll tell quickly. It was such a big part of my life in my early 20s that I'll never forget the day I went up to the station and it was a blizzard. It was a legit blizzard. And I was so committed to going to do the show, coming from Staten Island to Brooklyn, in which my commute was on a regular an hour and a half. And I remember the trains, the buses rather, were all backed up. And I don't think I got to the show that day until about 4:35. And I still went and did it because that's how much I wanted to be a part of every show.
Wow. Triple C?
Legendary. Again, not to toot our own horn, but we had an effect on a lot of people that we didn't realize. And a phenomenal one, you gotta, you got a taste of, listening to a fan that you met, years later. I met countless people that, didn't know me. Obviously, we don't have a face. We're doing radio. I'll have to say that what we did before podcast became a thing was legendary. And I'll never forget, doing those, doing Saturday afternoon's main event. and using the old Saturday Night's Main Event theme and using the Phil Collins Take Me Home to end our show the way we used to watch Saturday Night's Main Event, and doing the show again. Meeting Nate and meeting Mr. 411, in college, and the fact that we came together, and the fact that we're still friends after all these years, and wrestling was always been our genesis. Let's not use sports because I hate Chris. During basketball season, during the '90s, how many times I've hung up the phone on him because we would not even talk, stuff like that.
Yes.
Sports, but one thing that we all three of us, not counting you, Phenomenal One, is the fact that we love wrestling, and I will forever be grateful and say that Saturday afternoon's Main Event was legendary back then. And the way you, Phenomenal One, and the way you, Nate, have taken the show into this generation, into this right now, you guys are doing such a great job. And for me, just the fact that I appreciate you guys having me on, and for the first time ever since the time that we were doing it, to get all three of us together to do this show, for today, it was such a legendary thing, and I thank all of you for allowing me to be here and doing the show with you guys.
And by the way, not to plug my own show, but if you go check the archives of Morton's Law podcast, I did have the three of us on for one specific show called Same Reunion. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that, we talked about a lot of what we talked about today, but there's some other stuff on there that we did touch on that we didn't get a chance to touch on today. Like we should do fantasy wrestling. We talked about CTB. We talked about the reason why we bashed WKRB and the reason, and of course, losing BCAT and then the demise of the show. So there's so much more that you could get into and just listen to that episode on Morton's Law Podcast.
Exactly, guys. So go ahead and make sure to go ahead and tune in on Morton's Law Podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you choose to listen to your podcasts on. Go ahead and just type in Morton's Law and you will be able to find it. But look, guys, with that being said, this marks the end of a special episode of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, where we went ahead and talked about pro wrestling, and we gave you laughs, and we gave you good times. A precipice of what's to come. Of course, we have 3 more episodes to go until our season finale, so we will continue to go ahead and keep you guys in tune with what we do best. But look, it is here on Same. You know what? Screw that. Peeps, Triple C, Mr. 411, take us home.
Okay.
Right.
So, of course, for the peeps, Nate, for
Mr. 411,
the Triple C, we came.
where we came, we broadcast.
that's it.
That's it.
Jeez. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from them. That's it. See you next week for episode 18. It's the Phenomenal One. It's the Peeps Nate. It's our host, Triple C and Mr. 411 here on Same. Go watch Clash at the Castle, ladies and gentlemen. It's on right now. See you next week. It's Same. Peace, love, farewell.